You looking for this?
Welcome, everybody, to our very second episode on the YouTube. We tend to joke around before I hit the record button, thus all of our laughter. But thank you for listening / watching. We greatly appreciate it, and we finally have the full Legion in video format. So,
woo!
Right. So, Jordan.
Hello there.
Michael.
Hello there.
Cade.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be back.
And last but certainly not least, Leroy.
Salutations.
Certainly
How's everybody doing?
Not least at all.
Good.
I'm doing real good.
Excited.
Good.
Really good.
And as you know, I'm your host, Tice Clark, and we're just going to crack right into it, and we're going to do a summary first before we get into the meaty details with everybody. So,
Hey, is that a Moon Knight t-shirt?
It's
It
a sweatshirt.
sure is.
it's from New Rock
I like
Stars, who I hope
it.
to be friends with.
Yeah.
Someone at Eric Voss.
I'm an old rock star. Does that help?
Something like that. So, Thor embarks on a journey unlike anything he has ever faced. Kinda. It's a quest for inner peace. However, his retirement gets interrupted by Gore the God Butcher, a galactic killer who seeks the extinction of all gods. And to add, he is very good at it. And to combat the threat, Thor enlists the help of King Valkyrie, Korg, his ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, who is now wielding his ex-weapon, Mjolnir. She is now the mighty Thor. Together, they set out on a harrowing cosmic adventure, including the Omnipotent City. Is that the name of the city? Yeah?
Yeah.
Omnipotent
right.
City.
Omnipotent City.
Yeah.
Omnipotent
Oh, there's
City.
a S on the end of it. Okay.
It's
And they're seeking the help of Zeus, who is in the MCU like the god of gods. Russell Crowe freaking killed it. Here,
such a bizarre accent, too.
for real, it's like some weird god Greek accent. From here, they have the single most epic fight scene I've ever seen in my life. And at the end of it, they possess Zeus's thunderbolt. They use this to help fight Gore, who has possession of Asgardian children, using them as bait to draw in Thor, and in turn Stormbreaker. And he needs Stormbreaker because Stormbreaker has the ability to summon the Bifrost, which Gore needs to get to the Temple of Eternity. In the end, ends like most of the Marvel movies, Thor beats the bad guy, but he loses essentially everything that he loves, but the movie ends with him gaining love. So, from there, favorite parts, gents?
Anytime Mjolnir came apart into little bits and went all over the place, anytime that happened was my favorite part.
Amazing.
I think maybe it was Cade's, too.
So I sat next to Tice, and the same thing happened when Matt Murdock came onto the screen in No Way Home. I said out loud in front of lots of children, like, "Holy shit!" Because I hadn't seen the trailer, and I was like, "What just happened?"
Right.
I lost it. It was so great.
That
Yeah.
sound effect when it first splits and then it all comes back together. That's a top
Amazing.
5 MCU
Really good.
sound effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
Right.
she had the handle of Mjolnir next to the
Meow,
chin,
meow.
and it all went.
And it all came back and like just imploded the monster. Speaking of sound effects though, absent from your intro was the goats. And I think we should talk
hold on.
about the goats.
Is that better?
That
Fix it?
picked your mic so bad.
Completely peaked your mic.
The whole freaking movie, dude. It was honestly a little much.
It
No,
was
every
was a
time it
little much.
happened, it was still the funniest thing I've ever heard. It was great.
when they hit the dark realm, like just completely flat. So I was much like Jordan, where I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting sick of the goats, and then they splat into the planet, and I'm like, God damn it, that's
Still funny.
still funny.
Yeah.
Still funny.
Oh my gosh. So good. Jeez.
So for me, favorite part, hands down, was the Omnipotence City fight.
Really?
Good fight.
Yeah.
It's a good fight for sure.
It was fantastic.
I think that's the best fighting sequence I've seen in MCU. Like
It was cool.
the golden shower that commences from that.
Oh,
from
man.
all of the
So much gold everywhere.
We
Yeah.
are in a place. Dude, like,
feel
if
like-
that... So that was blood, but if we would have actually seen that as, like, red spew instead of,
R
you know,
rating.
just gold spew,
So
I'm like,
gory.
oh my gosh!
instantaneous R rating.
And you can just see Taika Waititi going up to the ratings board. He's like, you know, if we just make all the blood, you know, goldy sparkles, is that okay? They're like, I guess. He's like, all right, sweet. Here we go.
But yeah, that fight scene was incredible. I feel like we got some of the best fight scenes in the movies in this movie specifically.
Good.
This one,
Agreed.
the one near the end, and then the wacky one at the beginning with him fighting the,
With the feet,
the
with the
bird
feet on
people.
the Mad Max Eagles.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, some of the
The
best
bird
fight
people were
scenes
so
we've got
good.
so far. Yeah.
It was great to
This
see.
whole. Oh, go ahead, Cade. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it was just it was great to see Stormbreaker kind of get a little bit more action in this, because I think we had like brief glimpses of Stormbreaker in the past, but now just kind of seeing full flex Stormbreaker was
Fantastic.
sweet.
They gave Stormbreaker like a story arc.
The hammers were characters. The
It was
hammers were
incredible.
characters. It was really cool.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And I always felt like there was an element of Mjolnir being a character, but I hadn't really felt that for Stormbreaker until this film. It didn't seem to have. It was
Agreed.
exemplified even more.
They
even
really
for Mjolnir
embraced
in
it.
this film, but yeah,
yeah.
They
Yeah.
really felt just like things to me in the past, but this really put it over the top. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
The spin of them like making so Thor awkward around his ex with Jane, and then making him like lust for his old hammer just because of all the memories, and like as a nerd, I know what Stormbreaker's capable of. Like that is a god of god weapons, and like every good review has the bad side too, and like
yeah.
I know it's like his old love and he wants it back, but like it makes me so sad that he doesn't love Stormbreaker the same way he does Mjolnir, because it's like I want you to have the better weapon.
Right.
So Mjolnir with the
Mjolnir.
shatter attack.
It's so good. It was good
It
before,
is.
and now the way it shatters and like fans out is just amazing.
Mint.
It's
Yeah,
more
mint.
gooder. It's even
Very
more
I-
gooder.
surprised.
gooder.
Very surprised.
I agree with what you're saying, Tyson. I'm sure we'll get into it later. It coincides with some of the thoughts I have, but talking about favorite parts before we get too sidetracked, for me, I loved the Shadow Realm fight. The visuals and the sounds in that whole fight
Looks
were
so
just
good.
so cool. I
love
love
that
the color
Basically
in
was
black
on
and white.
a Mario Galaxy planet, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
really
That
tiny.
was
Yeah.
kind of silly.
So we talked
Yeah.
about it in the pre like release pod that we had, but since everything was dark, it was either gray or black or white, I guess technically. But when they were wielding the weapons and like Valkyrie spun the thunderbolt on her hand and the color on her arm was going like, oh, it's just
Looked
so
so
cool.
good.
It
Whoever
was
had the idea of doing that with the weapons, like
brilliant.
Yeah.
perfect.
Absolutely brilliant.
Like it wasn't just the choreography of the fights, which was amazing, but it was like the visuals of them too, with the gold
Yeah.
blood in the omnipotent
Oh, yeah.
city, and then the
It's really
color would
sucking
come
saying
in,
that
and
name.
The black. It's really hard for me to say for some reason. But
Same.
the way the color
It
would
threw off
come
my
back from
entire
that fight,
freaking intro.
so good.
Yeah.
I rehearsed my
Yeah,
intro. I was saying it perfect 5 minutes before we freaking started recording, I promise.
yeah.
Omnipotent city. Omnipotent.
An omnipotent city.
This sounds like a new
That was
drinking
good.
game. All right,
That
boys.
was good.
Say it right.
Say it right.
Yeah, I think for me, the strongest elements of, like, if I had to pick one thing, strongest elements of this film was probably just the cinematography of it, the way it was filmed, and the designs and the visuals, and kind of tacked onto that is the sounds. Also, the audio was top
Very
notch.
good.
Yeah.
Goats.
Really like
I have
Goats.
to amend my favorite part, and this is kind of circumstantial based on where we saw it. So Matt Damon's character, he plays Loki, and he comes out in that scene when they're in the little hallway in the hall talking. Leroy knows what I'm talking about because he was sitting right next to me. So he's dressed up as just like a regular dude, right, with the suit and the glasses on. And his scene's over. In the theater, the guy behind me turns to his buddy. He's like, "Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne!" And I absolutely lost it.
It's a 10 out of 10 joke.
It killed me.
Man,
Absolutely lost it. And
That was
I
so
told-
good.
what a
told everybody.
thrilling
It
experience.
was good.
We'll
So
try
that
that.
was my favorite part.
Nice.
Oh,
My
I was here for that continued joke, by the way. So that's Matt Damon, Liam Hemsworth, and who plays
It's not
his
Liam.
dad.
It's
I don't think it's
it's not
Liam.
Liam.
It's
Liam is
one
the
of the
other handsome
others.
Hemsworth. Yeah,
Right.
It's the oldest one, then, isn't it? Because
correct.
isn't Chris the middle kid?
I can Google it quick.
It's the one who played Kirk's dad in
Correct.
in the Star Trek remake, right? Yeah. And then
That-
freaking
that
Melissa
was-
McCartney.
That was Chris Hemsworth.
That was who?
no, that was
Luke.
that Chris Hemsworth is Kirk's father
This is-
in the Star Trek reboot. Yeah, that's
Yikes.
100% him.
Oh, it was.
Crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's great.
Luke-
Yeah,
Luke Hemsworth is the
Luke Hemsworth.
Luke.
And who played Odin?
that I'm not sure.
Google
The
that.
dude looks
It's,
familiar.
it's not a huge deal. All I know is that it's the same characters through the movies that have been doing it.
right.
the original
Right,
right, which is
characters
great.
from Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
That's just
Melissa
hilarious to
McCartney
me.
joined the
That-
cast
that's
this
a-
time.
Sam
That's
Neill
hella
is that guy's name.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love it. I'm totally here for
it's
it.
hilarious. Yeah,
That ties in with, I thought that was really great that they showed, like, I don't know, for me it was almost like this bittersweet thing where New Asgard had pretty much been reduced to like a tourist spot because that's just what they need to do for their economy and stuff like that.
Right.
And it almost like, I don't know, it reminded me so much of places like Disney World and things like that where you
Well,
get
yeah.
an element of that magic and then it just gets monopolized into
Well, yeah, and Valkyrie's doing a
Capitalism
freaking
is-
Old Spice commercial. Like,
Right.
they just
Right.
went for it.
yeah. With the little, yeah,
With the pan flute. Yeah.
like
yeah.
I just love when things like that take something so like magical and unreal from the MCU and just totally ground it in something we can relate to. Like
right.
it yeah, these characters that are like the heroes but not the big heroes would totally be in commercials and stuff like that. Like
No,
And
for
I
sure.
loved how it
Valkyrie
seemed
and-
like every so often Valkyrie would show up and just like in a t-shirt and like rain boots
Sweatpants.
and just like she's
Yeah.
so done with everything all the time. That was hilarious to me.
a very real
Yeah.
hero.
Very
like,
real. It felt really
Yeah, it's like a soldier being put behind a desk and just pencil pushing, and then just being like, "I'm done. I'm over it." That was cool.
right.
yeah.
Right.
Yep,
Very
being
funny.
king's not all it's cracked up to be sometimes.
My favorite part of the movie was the soundtrack. I love Guns N'
Good pick.
Roses, and so
Oh,
hearing
yeah.
everything from Appetite for Destruction, and then the solo to November Rain during the children fight scene. which leads to like one of my favorite themes, or one of my favorite parts is the theme, or one of the themes of this film is Thor giving the power of himself to, in a god's eyes, the least of these, where the entire movie is about like the response to like gods and the worshippers of these gods, and like how Thor is like, all right, I'm going to give you the mighty power of Thor temporarily to these kids. And I just thought that was just so cool.
Very
to feel
cool.
like, to have someone feel like they're unworthy, and to give that power to like the weakest of
Right.
of these the kids. I just thought that was so cool. That just totally took me
So
off guard. It was a really neat
The werewolf
theme.
kid going, but I'm not Asgardian. He's just like, hey, chill. Today you are. Today
I'm not
you are.
Asgardian either. Yeah.
That, and then Michael mentioned it to me in the movie at the time, was the bunny rabbit.
The bunny rabbit!
infused with the power of Thor, just like in the middle of that.
It was sweet.
It was very
Amazing.
The Boys. Very The Boys.
It
where he
did
takes-
feel very The Boys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted
that
to
was
jump
sweet.
on what you said, Kate, and kind of really ever since Age of Ultron, the idea of the power of Thor being shared has kind of been teased, obviously with Steve Rogers being up until now the main proponent of that, but it's
Right.
really kind of made the character or the entity of Thor stronger as an idea than even a person. So you have, in this film, now you have Jane Foster, all the kids, things like that, where it becomes more of a symbol than even a specific person, which is kind of neat to see.
Yep.
Should have been
I'll kind of
better
piggyback
rebuild.
on that. Right. I'll piggyback on that, though, with probably my biggest disappointment, I guess, with this film is just the fact that it feels like we're moving away from the idea of King Thor. Like, I think the message of the love and thunder and stuff was really cool, but I feel like it softened Thor in a way that isn't akin to the comics. The King Thor with Stormbreaker, because like Tice said, now
Right.
at the end we have essentially Dad Thor back with Mjolnir, and it felt like we kind of worked back in the opposite direction. That's probably my biggest complaint with it. I think that some of the theme or the plot ideas came at the cost of Thor, at least the elements of Thor that I think are strongest and coolest from the comics. But
Agreed.
Obviously the
Agreed.
story's not done yet, so that can only
Right.
be so much of a criticism. But
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But
just wanted
I
to get that
agree.
out there.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's all good. Yeah.
I think on the flip side of that too, though, I super enjoy watching Thor like galaxy hopping or just like planet
Just
hopping,
being a guy.
being just like this, being a dude, being a guy, fighting,
Right.
Yeah,
fighting
yeah,
the
being a
good
dude.
fight with his adopted daughter now. Like that,
Right.
that is a very enjoyable story for me to watch. Like that's
Yeah.
That leads me into, so I know I said the fight scenes, which those were top notch, like as good as we've ever seen. Sorry, Winter Soldier, but I think I
Don't
know,
you say it. Don't
I
you say it.
know, but I think the street knife fight got overtaken by the Omnipotent City fight because. Shot. We're just gonna glaze past it like Worcestershire.
No.
Worcestershire.
Michael, there's
How do I
a
leave?
there's a nice
How do I
warm
leave?
spot underneath the shade tree right next to me.
Time
No,
to, time to snuggle.
sorry, I don't-
fight in the shade.
I think that's a good argument though, that it's such a departure from like King Thor. I think that's very fair. And I would like to see that story at some point too, but it's not to
I hope
say
we
that
see
this
both.
isn't entertaining. Yeah, I want both.
right.
Both is great.
And I think there's a good chance we get there. I think we're just taking a longer road up.
Agreed.
Obviously, Disney wants to milk the MCU for all it's worth, which they're clearly trying to do in Phase 4, I feel, in a way that is starting to fall a little flat. We want to
I
go
think
there?
this is
I
I
don't
think
know.
this is what does it for me is I still think I enjoy Ragnarok more than this film, and it's
Yes.
because the way that it developed Thor from that and really saved his character. I think of the
It's very
scene.
close for me.
It
Right.
told
I
a
think of the
better
scene at
character, better character
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, at the end of it, when he's having that final conversation with Odin, when he needs the strength to face Hela, and he tells Odin, "I'm not as strong as you," and Odin says, "No, you're stronger."
You're stronger.
That
right?
felt like, dude, we're getting King Thor. And it's not to discredit any of the themes or the things that happened in this film, but it just felt like a backslide of the character, in my opinion, to how they had been handling him thus far.
Huh?
But-
Okay. Yeah.
I
mean,
get that.
I think it's a necessary development for him to find that piece that he needed because, like Tice said earlier, biggest theme for Thor has been his loss, and
Right.
the response that has provoked in him is what's made the character. And it was just a
it
different
feels
route
like-
in this one. But
It feels like the end of Ragnarok was like the beginning of that story, and this felt like the end of that story. Like,
Agreed.
This was the
It felt like an
final
interlude.
development. Kind of.
It doesn't.
Like,
it doesn't really feel attached to that story.
So
it feels
for
like,
King-
by the way, here's something else that's happening on the way back to the main story. to me.
right.
right.
So I kind of get that vibe too, but King Thor, I think we're getting in 5 because so we're skipping way to the end here. Then I'll get
The
to my favorite
Hercules
part after. but
shenanigans, sure.
Hercules shenanigans. I cannot speak English tonight, and I am hosting a podcast. Good
Omnipotent city.
Lord.
Omnipotent City.
Anyway,
Hey, you did it.
Worcestershire.
Herc and Thor are like direct rivals. So there's endless comics with them going back and forth. So like getting him finally, I think 5 will hopefully see better Ray. I'm gonna say it now, but anyway,
Yeah. So much
yeah.
for that prediction.
my heart. Yeah, I should have went with my other one, which is what my favorite part is here, but
Nailed my prediction, by the
you
way.
really did. Anyway, so they're rivals, and I think we'll finally get King Thor when all the other gods are going to be looking up to him because he's going to essentially, if things go correctly, beat Hercules and Zeus and everyone else that they get, and then finally he'll just sit like as the cream of the crop at the top. So,
The crop. Yeah.
but
Yeah, I want to see him as the Odin replacement now. Because
Right.
he
I
hasn't
think
really
we will
filled
get
his
that.
father's shoes.
I f-
Yeah.
I feel like we started to get pieces of that in this movie again, like with the way he imbued the kids' weapons and themselves as like extensions of his power. I feel like we started to see that we haven't seen before, that like that role that Odin took, that like giving out power that he hasn't really done before, but he just did it to a group of kids in the middle of a battle. Like I
and
feel
on
like
accident
we
he
finally
did it to Jane.
yeah, on accident he
gonna
did
say-
it to Jane.
The whole
Oh,
Thor
yeah,
being
yeah.
more an
I think
idea.
that's
yeah.
that's like the first taste that we've got of King Thor and like Odin level Thor that we haven't seen yet, and that's
Right.
very exciting. I think that's very exciting.
So my favorite part of this, and I had a theory before we went in, I am literally shooting myself in the foot that I didn't mention it before because I would have absolutely like drilled it. But so the big 3, Cap, Iron Man, Thor. Those are the MCU granddaddies. The first 2 got their happy endings. They had their family. Granted, one of them died a tragic death, but they got their family. You know, Iron Man got Pepper, got Morgan. Steve went back, spent his life with Peggy. Thor didn't get his happy ending. And I knew, so just from comic history, Thor has a daughter. Like, it exists. There's many Thors everywhere. But go for it, Cade. What's up?
Yeah. So, didn't she? I guess I need to re-watch it again because I'm still
I'll,
like.
I'll get
the
into what they're going to do with this gal here soon because I
Yeah,
think
okay,
that
cool.
kind of explains the ending.
I'm still kind of in the wonderful bliss of this movie, but I'm pretty sure she calls Thor Uncle Thor.
She does. So like
Okay.
he's operating as like Uncle Daddy.
Okay, so Uncle Daddy. Okay, so
Right.
it's safe.
Uncle
It's
Daddy.
safe to say that we can
Right.
call. Okay, cool. I just wanted to.
I would assume
clear.
so. He's taking up the father figure in her life, so
Okay, cool.
I think in 5 we'll get this tender moment of her, instead of saying uncle, will just be like, okay, Dad, as Thor passes away into golden dust or something like that. But
I'm not ready for that yet.
anyway,
I don't think I'm ready for that either.
I kind of
Neither is Chris Hemsworth.
Right, he wants
Good.
in. He wants in, and he wants in for
Good.
long time. I
As
want
long as
for
the
a long
fans
time.
still want him to do it.
Right.
Which I do.
But I had this idea that Thor was going to get his happy ending. We knew Jane was going to be in it from promotional material, but we all kind of assumed she was going to run the same comic cancer line, and I assumed she was going to die. But then in the middle of the movie, they hold this shot on a kid while Thor's walking by, and he's reminiscing with Jane, thinking about the future. And Korg even says Thor wanted to fill the void in his life even when he was with Jane, and it focuses in on a kid. And then the freaking theme song of all of the trailers was Sweet Child of Mine, which is a freaking love letter. And this entire time I thought he was going to have a kid, and then the second that I saw Gore's daughter die, I'm just like, it's gonna freaking happen. I deep down in my soul, the second that we got in the pickup and I was talking to Kate, I was just like, right when I saw them 15 minutes into the film focus in on that kid, I'm just like, he's getting a child somehow. And then with the kidnapping, and I'm just like, it has to line
all
up.
the kids.
Right,
yeah, that's a reoccurring.
There's a lot
thing where
of kid
Taika,
stuff in this movie, wasn't
There
there?
is. Yeah.
Taika
So
Waititi,
the whole time,
I was just gonna say, Taika Waititi spoils his own movies with the promotional music he does. In hindsight, you can
In
never really
hindsight.
never quite piece it together beforehand. But then you look, same thing happened with Ragnarok with Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. That's the plot of Ragnarok and Asgard.
The
and
entire
then
thing.
Sweet Child of Mine. Yep.
Yeah. It's it's just beautiful. Actual poetry.
Yeah, I'll take this as a double-edged sword because I really enjoyed this movie because I really enjoy Taika Waititi's art. For everyone else, I chose to not watch any of the other trailers besides the first one.
And
However,
that was a teaser, mind you.
Yeah. So I had no idea what I was walking into, but obviously since I love Ragnarok, I wanted more like Ragnarok. So, and I think I got that, but I think there's lots of things that, the staples of Taika Waititi from previous other of his projects, I could see being rehashed and even from Ragnarok. So the acting scene with Matt Damon, that was back, and it was great. And then, like you said, the music kind of tells the tale of the tape, and it's just that's. This is a double-edged sword because I think while I like it, I think some other people will be like, yeah, we've seen this before. Why are we getting this constantly? And I'm just I think that it's, again, people are going to take it either with a grain of salt or all of the salt because all of the salt. I've enjoyed, I enjoy the amount of trust that Taika had in being an artist while making this film because going into Ragnarok all those years ago, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want another Thor film. And now it's my
after
favorite.
the second one.
The first, so Ragnarok.
Right.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and then
being
so surprised with Ragnarok, and just how it's it felt like an '80s action movie.
The jump in this kind of movie we got from Thor 2 to Thor 3, I would argue is the biggest change in any franchise within the MCU by far.
I think that saved the character of Thor, really.
100%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's totally to credit to Taika Waititi's directing, I think, because thinking of the MCU, the only other director that leaves such a noticeable mark, I would say, is maybe James Gunn and maybe the Russo brothers.
Russo bros, I would say, are up there too.
Those three are so trademarked in their styles that that really, I think, going from Dark World to Ragnarok really redefined Thor and who he was as a character
and,
for the better.
And like on the way back home from South Dakota, I was kind of listening to other people's movie reviews about it and how there
You
was
went all the way
actually-
up to Sioux Falls to watch that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
buddy.
Atta boy.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good deal.
Yeah, we had a good weekend.
Had a really good weekend. We scored a bunch of comic books at a
Nice.
Freaking thrift store.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Very nice.
Anyway, just like there was a lot of conflict on like the back end of Love and Thunder. So like Peter Dinklage and a couple other actors had like made like actually directed some parts of this film, and they got cut because the original length of this movie was 4 hours long. And so I think they're kind of going back. I don't want to go back too much into this because maybe it's for a different conversation. Just like the current state of the MCU, we're kind of feeling the ripple effect from like COVID, like post-COVID. Just everything's trying to get back in order. Things are
100%.
aren't in tip-top shape, and it's unfortunate that people are feeling it in Love and Thunder. And to be honest, I think it was too. But I also find
Multiverse
it
of
very,
Madness got absolutely
yeah.
by
Yeah.
COVID.
I also found it very bold that Taika kind of took on the challenge of tying some loose threads, because I really appreciated that Love and Thunder was kind of a mix of Ragnarok and Thor 1 and 2, and it just kind of was like, because of the awkward like charismatic interactions with like past loved ones, and it's just I felt really uncomfortable at some parts, and then I was like, if I was in a room with like one of my exes and like after like a breakup, like that tension and just like that, hey, what's happening? How are you doing?
Right.
How's life? And like Tice made a really good point when like they're first talking and like she or Lady Thor and Thor meet, and it's like, what's it been? And like 4 years, and Thor's like, no, it's been 8 years, 4 months, and something days. And she's like, it's been like 2 years. And Tice made a point that maybe she was gone in the snap.
She was gone in the snap. She was confirmed snap. She was up on the screen when they were like doing the flip.
Okay,
by.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah, so I loved like how everyone like we had like 3 power players on the screen at the same time, and like the chemistry, and potentially 4 with Korg, just like how those dynamics like worked, and just like the conversations, and just like that really awkward feeling of like, oh, this is not great. And even with like Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, like giving them characteristics or like personalities to just be,
The axe blade doing
oh my gosh.
like look.
Yeah. And then I guess unlike Tice, I had no idea where the story was going. And just like being in love, like anything is
Literally nothing makes
open.
sense. Right.
Yeah, like nothing makes sense. The world doesn't make sense. All it is just like you're zeroed in on this one person until you're just like you're looking at the cards that life has dealt to you, and you're like, well, maybe I do want a kid with this person. Like maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to move away. Maybe I don't know. Like love is just so, it does weird things, and somehow, some way they got that. I connected with that really well, and just seeing like that part of like Thor looking at the child, and then at the end of the movie when we get the wish, I was like, okay, obviously that's gonna go to Jane. But then Jane's like, no, like you love her, and that was that. It was I really enjoyed it. Because I didn't know about the whole Jane arc, which I really enjoyed as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, and with love being the main theme of this film, I think it's really interesting and cool when you look at it from the perspective that love is what made Gore too.
Right.
Him losing that love and the way he responded to it is what made him. Obviously, there was some corruption going on with the Necro sword, but
I don't know if you're doing cheeky wordplay right now, but continue with your point, and I'm going to continue off of you.
He's a wood.
But no, just essentially that like Gore's response to the loss in his life could have very easily been Thor's response. They were like two sides of the same coin. Just
Right.
the way they responded to the events in their lives is what made them differ. And I think that's why at the end you really see Thor have compassion for Gore, because I think he understands that, and he gives Gore that dilemma that, like, hey, you can finish this quest that you've been set on and doing so much to try to finish, or you can fix the thing that set you on the quest in the first place, and making that choice between the two. I think that was a
Right.
pretty neat way, and it was so powerful coming from Thor, because he's had to do exactly that. That was his whole arc with Thanos. He just wanted the vengeance, wanted him dead, and we saw how once he achieved that, it only left him more hollow, and he understood
empty.
that.
Yeah,
And that's why he
absolutely.
was conveying that to Gore. I thought that was pretty sweet.
In discussion of the wish, are we under the impression that was Thor's wish? I thought that was Gore's wish.
It is
That was
Gore's
Gore's.
wish.
Okay, okay, I
So,
was making sure.
Eternity only grants the wish of the first person to her.
Right.
So, with that, he wishes his daughter back into existence, which means she's born of eternity. Eternity has a daughter whose name is Love. Thus, the
And-
love and thunder at the end.
Seeing her
Right.
reflection in the water as she's walking forward, and it's all, oh my gosh, that
I
was
got
looks
goosebumps.
so
That's
that
good.
was
so
neat
cool.
as
So, Eternity's daughter, her name is Love, or Lady Love, or whatever you want to call it. She's a high being, and she's even above like the likes of like Galactus.
I was going to ask you about the
She's-
hierarchy, because we were discussing
So-
that on our way out of the theater. Like, what's
So,
a
like-
god? What's a celestial? What is this? Like, I don't know.
Eternity is the core. So how it goes is Eternity, the one above all, living tribunal. Then like there's like a whole like shotgun of things. So like love, and there's a whole bunch of them. Then it's like the Celestials, but above like there's a hierarchy among like the Celestials, and then there's like the gods that we were seeing in like the city council or whatever. And
So eternity's it. Like, eternity is...
Eternity
it.
is it. Correct.
The carpenter god.
There might be. So with Marvel, it's hard to keep track because they just keep like, hey, we're just going to sneak this guy on up above this one and then sneak this person up above that guy. So if there is one above, please leave a comment down that direction.
Right.
Well, and you
Like and-
saw
and
in
like and
that...
subscribe, by the way.
Like
Oh,
and
definitely.
subscribe.
Yeah,
You saw in that temple they were in that it was eternity, and then all of her, I don't
So-
want to say subservience, but beings below her.
Essentially, yes.
And you see the three-face, whatever the frick, you see a celestial,
Tribunal.
you see
Celestial
death,
was the one
you
above all. You see death,
You see a watcher.
Oh wow.
and you see
Yeah.
Infinity, who is the sister of Eternity.
Right.
And there would be one more, right? Because there were 7 total if you include eternity.
Yeah, so one above all is the one that got his head chopped off as a celestial. I would have to look up the... Did we say death?
Death.
Death, Infinity, Living Tribunal, Uatu was in there.
Yep.
Is there any?
I would have to
I
see
don't
it again.
remember.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not a
it's
big deal.
Yeah.
Is there any connection between Vormir and the place where eternity lies, or like?
I don't
rests?
think so.
Okay.
The problem with the MCU
It is
is
similar
that they've
looking,
done
but-
enough like change that it very well could. Like,
Yeah.
so I was waiting for the whole Beta Ray thing because I was convinced he was going to be in it. I was waiting for when they were like, "I'm not Asgardian," for like a Beta Ray, like his race to like be in the background.
Yeah.
So like when I was scanning and he was giving his speech, I'm just like, I'm looking at all of
Where
the
is
children. Where is he?
Where is he?
Give him to me. I want you to do it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Cade made a comment, and I don't know if you guys caught it or not. So they're walking through the like the foyer before the meeting with all of the gods, and they're just like, oh, there's like we see the dragon from Shang-Chi, and then we see the bow. the freaking bow god, who is all ooh and weird.
The god of dumplings. You
God
know,
of
God of
Dumplings.
dumplings. Yeah.
We
That was awesome.
we see
Amazing.
Korg's. I try to like download while I'm in there what like all the names and everything are, but like so Korg's god, it was some ridiculous name. I don't remember it, but he
But he was sitting sitting on the
Iron
sitting on
throne of
scissors.
Yes.
scissors.
throne of scissors.
Yes.
Amazing.
Oh, kill me!
It was a little much. It was a
10 out of
little much.
10. But then they're
Amazing.
walking
I said-
by, and off screen they go, "Oh," and then there's that carpenter god, and they're 100% nudging at Jesus there. Like,
I kind of thought.
yeah,
What the
like,
frick
that's
was the little
hilarious.
beard head with the feet? What the frick was that?
I think that's just Takai being like, you know what would be
Yeah.
hilarious?
Dude,
Yeah,
I
like
think
that.
that's no. I think that's actually a folklore thing. I don't remember
is.
what culture, but
Because I think
That's
it's a
100%
D&D
a
monster,
thing.
and I
oh man, that's amazing.
I don't.
If it's
I
not
did
a
not
Gandalf.
like
Hilarious.
it. I did not like it.
I wanted to bounce back. We were talking about hierarchy, and Tice, you may have more comic knowledge than me, or I may just have things mixed up. But I was thinking in my hierarchy, thus the name, the top dog was the one above all. You were saying that eternity was, but
So I'm not entirely sure of. I'm pulling
I feel
up
like
a
it'd
graph
be-
currently.
right? I feel like it'd be a little odd to have someone named the one above all and have him second,
Except for one.
except for one asterisk.
The
But-
one above all else.
Super duper one above
But-
everyone.
Okay, yes,
for
you were
sure.
correct. So it is. So reverse it. So the
Okay.
major metal English, the major metaversal,
Omnipotencity.
major metaversal. They're the top three things in all of Marvel. It's the Overvoid, the Source, and the One Above All. And the One Above All is the only entity. And then from
Right.
that, the minor metaverse is the Council of the First Circle, Judges of the Source, the Super Celestials, and the Living Tribunal.
Yes.
I think I'm looking at the same chart you're looking at.
With all the circles, I have to keep
Now,
freaking zooming
With all
into
the
it.
circles. Yeah, I have to too. So
Do
where
we
does
know if
sure,
Arishem
okay.
is one
Eternity
of the
is
Super
actually
Eternals?
under the Living Tribunal.
Right.
And why are some
Which-
of them red and some of them blue?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't give you a key. You know what?
Party association.
For everyone watching, this is
Hey.
non.
We can do this.
I can do this
What?
now.
What was
I forget-
that? What was that, Cade?
Nothing. Nothing.
Uh,
just trying to figure out data.
There we go.
It's all right. We'll watch
So,
the Divide later.
Everyone can see the same thing I'm looking at now.
Found it on
Nice.
the Reddits.
Yes. So Living Tribunal, then it is Eternity, and then a bunch of people. I'm not going to read all of
interesting.
them. I'll leave this up for a little bit
Well-
if you're interested in seeing it. But
And again, to point out, we love our comic book sources, but we also acknowledge the fact that the MCU can, will, and has departed from comic source with some things. So Wow.
Sure.
while that might be what we have to base things off of, that may not always be the case. Just know we're dealing with some pretty big name characters that are
right.
above what we have seen thus far,
For sure.
which is pretty interesting. Pretty cool.
Oh hey, I just figured it out. Blue is for DC, red is for Marvel.
I was because I'm
That
looking at
makes
blue
so
and I'm
much
like,
sense.
why is the Lantern Corps in here all the way at the bottom? I'm like,
Superman.
That's
don't
what triggered me too.
understand.
That and the fact
Was
that
I wrong, Jordan?
Wait.
Was I wrong?
I didn't hear what you said.
Well, that's your fault.
So what also tipped me off is there's a Lucifer on this chart, and the
like
devil and
Mephisto.
Mephisto. Where is he?
yeah. Well,
It's somewhere.
I'm sitting here scrolling around. I was just like, Lucifer.
he
He's
was-
not even.
He was one of the goats.
Okay, so for the sake of this podcast, ignore everything that I actually said in it, and I'm just going to just sit here in silence because I was completely wrong.
Oh my gosh.
I think one of those, the dudes in the temple was a Beyonder.
That
Potentially. That sounds correct.
maybe.
Because I'm looking at the picture and he's got kind of like a flattish face, how Gore should have looked. And
Right.
yeah.
Interesting.
Christian Bale, what a bro.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like
what I wanted to
we've
get
gone up
into
until
next.
this point and we haven't mentioned him really.
I wanted to
yet.
get into
and
it
he
next.
was really, really good. Yeah,
The
He was so
part
good.
when Thor first sees him and he's off in the distance, and then the person passes by and he's gone, and then another person passes by and he's there, gave me chills.
Yeah.
and
I
like
loved.
when he's in the kind of the shadows and he's just kind of walking up and you can see his face almost looks like a skull, like his
skull.
nose is missing,
Yes.
and his eyes are sunken. Looked so cool, and they kind of played with like this deception of it, like what he actually is and then what you see. It looks so amazing. And then Jordan, what you mentioned in the movie about how he played Batman and how you realized he could have also played Joker as well because of his acting chops. Like,
Dude,
Yep.
rings true.
we were on the drive back and Cade and I were talking and I was just like, this is going to sound like a really weird review of him as a villain, but he's everything that the Jared Leto Joker should have been. Like he had like the like weird like twists and like the way he spoke, and the scene in the cage like just had that like hilarious like psychotic twist to it that I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what Leto's Joker should have been. Like
Yeah. When
Yeah.
he consistently hit a mood where he felt like he was so unhinged he would snap at any second, but he never snapped, which is almost scarier than someone that's just a loose cannon. He had
Focused.
he had this element of control that someone that insane like should not have.
It
Like,
was almost as if he was
man,
symbiotic.
I thought you were
we
going to
can't
say psycho.
we can't say that word. This is a
we don't say that
MCU
word in the
canon
MCU apparently.
Symbiote. Or no, that's Sony. Never mind.
Right.
Symbio City.
You can just say enhanced.
Olympus
City.
to city.
Oh, you guys are dicks. Anyway,
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. Like, I think Gore just being like watching him fight was really interesting because he doesn't look like a fighter or like a swordsman even. It's like the sword is moving. The sword is moving him to fight.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just so cool. Like, it's literally like a Oathbreaker paladin that
Right.
just doesn't fight, but the sword fights for him, and Gore is just the host. That's
Yeah,
just
it really-
fueled by this hatred. So great.
Yeah, it really felt like the sword was the villain. Because look at
Yeah.
even once he got separated from it, that's when he had his redemption. And the part at the opening scene when the god has him and the
Yes.
sword just rises up to his hand.
I was.
They could have
about
called
to
this
say it.
movie. They could have called this movie Thor: Swords and Hammers.
Right.
Oh,
So
Cass and Stormbreaker.
yeah, all of the weapons had their own
when
personality and characteristics.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's brilliant. That's
even when he's walking away on the moon, he's dragging Stormbreaker, and then he just like extends his hand, and the sword just comes out and just like ever so like just gently like touches his hand, and he just continues to walk.
Yeah. When that first god has him and he is holding him by the neck and the sword raises up and you hear those like whispers start to come in, like man, and then that line when they're like, you've been cursed by the necro sword, and he says, really, it feels more like a promise. If that ain't a warlock, I don't know what is.
Right. Right.
Boy, it sure would have been nice to get some context as to where that necro sword came
Yeah,
from.
where did that sword come from? And that guy laying there
I
dead
saw
that
the
had
black
it before?
being. We were so close. We were so close.
I feel like
Why
to say
can't
if that was
Disney just
null or
own the
not, but
world?
like, right.
it
know?
seems like we're never gonna get that in the MCU. Like we're never gonna get that connectivity between what we've seen now with the symbiotes. Like, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen right here. Like, it needed to happen right here, and it didn't. And I don't think we're going to get it, at least not
So,
for
Leroy,
a long time.
are you saying your prediction of more connectivity to the rest of the MCU
My
Kinda got shot
prediction
on that.
did
now
not work out?
is that I feel like what they did with Infinity War, with all of the Infinity Stones and the story that they told from Iron Man 1 to Endgame, I feel like they did the super interconnected movies. They did it well, and now they don't want to. They've done it. They don't want to do it anymore, and we're going to get these movies like Spider-Man, like Multiverse, like this movie Thor. They're just standing alone. Like, I don't know if we're going to get that connectivity for a while yet. Which,
Yeah, I think if that comes, it may be once they start doing like Fantastic Four and X-Men content, and
hopefully
it's the same thing. Right. Well, it's like
Hopefully-
it's like you're.
Wait, good.
No, I was just gonna say it's like you were saying. Obviously, this was the time to do that with the symbiotes, but they flat out really
Refused.
couldn't. I don't think.
Well, they wouldn't have even
legally
had to
or-
do a symbiote thing. They just show us anything to do with Null, even in your little
But it's still a
exposition
gray
there towards the
area.
beginning. Yeah, I hear.
Because
I feel
still
like-
the god of symbiotes, and if we get explanation, it might be if and when they ever acquire those rights. Like I think we'll eventually see with X-Men and Fantastic Four.
Maybe.
Like back in 2001, we never would have thought we'd see X-Men in the
Right.
capacity that we have the
Right.
MCU. But now it's like that's down the pipe somewhere. So
It's sitting in such a weird spot though, because
It is.
symbiote isn't actually like a Spider-Man exclusive thing. Like obviously the popular ones are all Spidey villains, but like
right.
we
Which
have
again,
no, like
like, if they weren't going to do it here, I don't think they're going to do it ever until they acquire the actual rights to Spider-Man, to all of that. I guess the other point I was going to make with the interconnectivity and my prediction falling hard on its face, I don't think they're going to like embrace that fully interconnected plot like they did before, until like this really this is what I'm hoping for me personally, this moment that it's going to happen.
Buckle up.
And like it's going to blow your socks off, and I need to stop expecting it from every single bloody movie that I go and watch, with Spider-Man, with Multiverse, with this. I
To
need
be
to
fair-
stop expecting it, and once I stop expecting it, it's going to blow my socks off if it happens when it happens, cuz
to be
eventually
fair,
it's
all
gonna
of the
happen.
movies you listed had very high potential for the whole interconnected socks blown off thing. Spider-Man
They
less
did?
than Multiverse
What?
of Madness, just because it was focused on solely Spider-Man. But
Sure.
Multiverse of Madness had this. I think that's why I hated it so much. Because I went in
had-
expecting it to just absolutely crack the sky open on MCU, and it just wasn't.
Like hardly at all.
Right.
We were all expecting a multiverse movie, and we got a Doctor Strange movie.
Right.
which
Yeah.
it's our fault,
Which is
and
fine.
it's the fault.
It's-
It's
yes.
the fault of the people that made the trailers that made me think that, and it's my
Yeah.
fault for having watched the trailers and expecting that.
Yeah,
like
Cade.
I need to stop.
Are you saying we as consumers and viewers should?
I'm saying I
temper
want
our
to. I
expectations?
want to hear what Cade has to say.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because, and I don't want to. Well, first of all, I want to hear what's going to blow your socks off, because I don't know what you're talking about. The other thing is that I hadn't seen any of the trailers, and talking to Michael before we got on, I was like, oh, it might be a good idea for me to watch the trailers. If I were to have watched the trailer, if I were to have watched the trailers before I saw the movie, I think I would have wanted a different movie. Somehow I think there's a big disconnect between the artists who make movies and the people who promote movies just to get butts in seats. Like, I was very surprised what I saw in especially the last trailer. It was so long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm very close to like never watching trailers for these movies again. Like I'm almost there with you, Cade. Like I don't know if I need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
There's that. And then also you asked like what the interconnectivity would look like at some point. And I think it will be finally when we have the stories that we've got from Thor, from Multiverse of Madness, from Spider-Man, when we finally see one of these characters bleed over to the other and we see this like connection from what we've got, the conflicts that we've got going on, back to what is a serious problem with I can't even think of his name now. At the end of
Kang?
Loki, Kang. Finally get this thread back to Kang and tying like from the very, very start to what will be happening in the future, tie these things together. I need to see them tied together because we haven't had any of that so far.
Right.
Yeah. I still would like the idea of like, since none of these are connected, it's like we're watching this through Kang's eyes. Like Kang is a member of the audience watching all these different tales to be like, okay, there's
That
this,
very well
there's Moon Knight.
could be the
There's-
thing that like
Yeah.
because he is like the ruler of time. So like
Yeah.
the reason all of these aren't connected is because there's a good chance that we're like, you know,
Time's messed
not
up.
connected. Like if that makes
And
sense.
if I would start watching these movies with the with the offset of not expecting them to tie so much together and just appreciate them for the movies that they are standalone, I feel like I would enjoy them so much more. And I think that's why I enjoyed this movie so much more than Multiverse of Madness, was because I was ready to not like, I wanted the big balls prediction to be that it connected to everything else, but like I did fully expect to not get that. And I think that's why I
Right.
enjoyed this movie
Right.
so much.
You were putting your hope out on the line, and it fell into a dark chasm.
Well, and
Yes,
part of the
very
problem
dark
is
chasm.
they have so many lines out right now. They have Young Avengers out. They have Thunderbolts. They have
Right.
Kang. They have Guardians star hopping, defending the universe, which is what I want to see. But also, like you said, we're so used to from the Infinity Gauntlet that all of these characters are driving to, even if they're on their own separate story, they're all driving towards the same goal. Like
Exactly.
us as viewers could see it, even though the characters couldn't. And like
Right.
now we're just at this point where there's just so many lines in the water, and we just have to wait until Kang is going to be the one to do it, to bring everyone back. And
Yeah.
you said like you just enjoyed the movie for the movie. That's part of the problem with what Phase 4 is doing, in my opinion. They're just making. I said it in the Multiverse of Madness trailer, and I'm going to stand by it. They're making comic book movies. They're not making good movies. Like they're doing what they can to just tell a comic book story, and
Right.
a comic book story doesn't go well with screen time because comics run for
Forever.
15 years
Yeah.
plus, and you can't
True.
do it in 2 hours and have it be graceful. Like
Your point is very interesting because I feel we're seeing a pendulum swing, right? When studios started making all these comic book movies, they're like, ugh, comic book stuff is weird. Let's focus on making it a good movie and sprinkle in some comic book stuff.
Right.
And then they figured out everyone gets real horny for the comic book stuff. So now we've gone the other way. They're putting less focus in on making them good movies and just dumping comic stuff into them, which I think you please some people on either side, but you've got to hit that right in the middle and
Well, and-
get all the comic book stuff.
I'm
and
very
it has
much-
to be a good movie. You got to do both.
I'm very much on. I think we've developed it at this point. I'm very much on the comic book side. Like
I would lean
I
that side too.
dump all of that in there, but also
Yeah.
like just lately, I'm just like, these movies freaking blow. Like I enjoy them
Right.
because I'm a freaking nerd. But like if I take Liv or any of Liv's friends, Liv has a best friend who is like, she's a nerd. She enjoys Marvel. Like she knows a fair amount of it. But we went into Multiverse of Madness, and she's like, what is
Yeah.
going on? Like,
Yeah.
and with
If you don't know at this point, you have no freaking clue.
well, Multiverse of Madness required you to watch a lot before you went into it to understand like all the push and pulls of it. But with this, I feel like you can go into it and just enjoy it. It's funny, it's action packed. There might be a couple things that you're just like, huh. Like you won't get the whole, like the full tension between Thor and Jane, but they do the 30 seconds of Korg summing up, like, and
That
his
was so
ex
awesome.
Jane, and
I
you're like,
loved
oh,
that.
like that's his
Korg
ex. No wonder it's so
recapping-
awkward, right?
Korg recapping was an amazing breath of fresh air into all of that. That was great.
Yep.
And that's,
Exposition is such a dirty no-no in films, and just to see Taika just absolutely go for
Fully
it.
embrace
Himself.
it and nail it. As
The director
himself.
just catching you up as Korg. I'm like, I'm here for it. I'm so
Same
here
thing
for
in
it.
the Ant-Man films with Scott Lang's friend.
Yeah.
Him and Korg, I need in the same room.
Right.
I
Oh my
need it.
gosh, absolutely.
put those two in the van together. That would be,
Yeah.
it would be
I wanna-
hilarious short.
You
I want to
wanted
jump
say-
in when we got a free
Oh,
moment.
go
Go
for
ahead,
it.
Michael. No, mine thing's
Well,
long.
I was
My
just
thing's
gonna-
long.
I was just going to jump in on what Ty said and say, yeah, like, I didn't even think of it till much later. Think about trying to watch Multiverse of Madness having not seen WandaVision. Like, coming off of
Right.
Endgame and stuff, you're like, what is going
Well,
on with
and
Scarlet Witch?
Not
She
to
has
interrupt you,
kids?
but
Oh, hey,
there's a
She's red.
whole Marvel
She's also
audience
mad.
that just watches movies. They don't watch
That's
the
what
Disney
I'm-
Plus
yeah.
stuff, right?
And
Yeah.
you'd be ran over, lost, and I think half the movie interest there would be like gone because like
I don't know. I think they've done their research. If they thought nobody was watching the Disney Plus stuff, they wouldn't be
Yeah,
doing these the way they're
sure,
doing them.
but I'm saying the way they're doing that interconnectivity isn't like they've done anything thus far, and I'm not saying it can't work or anything like that, but like Leary had said prior, we are very clearly out of the Infinity Saga, and they're trying new things, and it just seems pretty hectic and disconnected right now, at least. And yeah,
'Cause-
I feel almost any of the Infinity Saga movies you could show someone having not seen any other Marvel movie, and it would be a good film and understandable. Again, I'm going to bring it up. Winter Soldier, I think, is the best MCU standalone film. You can watch that whole film and be gripped the whole time and understand what's going on, but then
that
it
is
also
just a
ties
good
into the bigger
action
plot.
movie.
Yeah.
Period. Like
I
nothing
might
else
have
to
to
it.
say,
That is a
might have
good
to say
action
the
movie.
first Guardians of the Galaxy for me.
That one's also good, and then also obviously Iron Man because it started it all, and there was
Sure.
not really
Right.
anything
Right,
else
right, right.
before that. But even like Infinity War stands sufficiently on its own. Like obviously you're much more rewarded for having seen things prior, but I heard a lot of people just getting into the MCU
Like, jump
around
in
the
right there.
Infinity War time, and they loved it, understood it enough. The plot was
Cool.
clearly there. Yeah,
Cool.
I have
and I just
couple,
don't see you being able to do that with the current films we're getting. Like,
right. I have
you'd
a
just be
couple
lost.
people in my life that started that way. They started in the Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet saga, where Thanos is already established. Like we already have a 3-hour almost movie of it, and then they got rewarded by going back, and like it's like doing a Star Wars. Like they saw where we were at the end, and then they got to go back and watch Qui-Gon and Anakin, and like
Yeah.
it's so freaking like I kind of wish I could have watched it that way, just like from fresh eyes, but also but like
Yeah.
like an alternate version of me, because I'm very happy to watch them as we go. But like,
Sure.
Why not both?
So I just wanted to kind of jump in and talk about, I don't know, I guess what worked for me and what didn't. I just, going off more the instinct than anything, I remember I walked out of the theater thinking the first probably half or just a little bit more of this movie didn't do a whole lot for me. It felt like it was relying heavily on Taika Waititi being Taika Waititi, which, to be fair, does a lot to hold the movie up. He's a very funny guy, but it felt kind of empty up until when we really get, I don't know, I'd say maybe the MacGuffin of the kids being stolen or what have you. But then when we get kind of into Thor getting serious about, going to rescue them from like the back half of the movie, I was completely engaged, loved every minute of it. The other thing that didn't work for me, and it just breaks my heart because, at least in my eyes now, Natalie Portman's two most major on-screen appearances with some kind of love story, being Star Wars and the Thor series, I just don't feel it from her. And I don't know if it's how it's directed or if it really is her. Her and Hemsworth trying to connect, especially with that scene on the boat, which I'm going to chalk up to the writing because I thought it was terrible. The whole I want to feel shitty about you and him trying to explain it thing. It fell really flat for me. And I didn't feel I felt less chemistry between those two in this film than I felt in any of the other three. Well, the two that she was in.
I agree with you. I wanted to chalk it up to Natalie Portman because, we're 0 for 2 in series that I love. Like, come on. But also, if you've ever seen V for Vendetta, like...
Oh, yeah, dude.
Dude, she absolutely kills it. You instantly feel that connection between her and V. Like...
Right.
So, I don't know. It's either V for Vendetta is incredible, and Lucas isn't known for his scripts. Like, those aren't meant to be, well-written love stories. They're supposed to be very middle school. Oh, I like you too. Like,
so that's like legit something I was looking for in this film. I'm like, okay, we're finally going to get to see, specifically
love story.
Thor and Mighty Thor on the same playing field. And if we follow the timeline of her like dying of cancer, which we did, like that's going to really open things up. And it was mostly in the first half with the way they connected, and especially just very specifically that scene when they're on the boat that just fell completely flat for me. Towards the end, I was very happy. I was happy with where it went. I was happy with their interactions, but I just didn't feel much of anything going on before that, which it's a minor gripe. I would say Ragnarok is far and away my favorite Thor movie, then this one, then probably the first one, then the second. It's kind of where I land right
now. Probably the same.
Her love story in the first two, like, horrid. I like you said, I was never gripped by it, which is why in the pre-movie showing Thor episode that we released, I said that I would be the most okay of all of the main characters for Jane to die, because like, really. And for the future of just Thor in general, like, her out of the way just clears so much stuff up. And also, I just didn't care about her character. And
that's due to the writing, right? Like you
Right.
weren't emotionally engaged with her, and that's on a combination of the writer, the actress, and all that stuff.
Well, and even in Dark World, I think that's part of the reason why that movie falls flat, because the entire time she has the ether in her, and she's like, I'm gonna die, and it's like, okay, like, make sure you're somewhere far away from the dark elves so that way they can't get it. But
could you climb in this jar first so we can have the ether just...
Let's put you in the basement with the giant dog and the skeletons, just to quadruple check that no one can get the ether.
Wow.
But like,
that's messed up.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to make that clear, because really those are the only
Agreed.
complaints I had about the film. Otherwise, I thought it was great. I don't know. I thought the Guardians were a little underutilized, but I understand it's not their movie.
Chris Pratt did not look good. He looked sick.
so
Star-Lord. I was watching
agree.
it and I was like,
He's very scruffy, very scruffy looking.
I
agree,
get it. He's coming off of like Gamora, like losing Gamora or like trying to regain Gamora.
So
But
that
I was like,
and
that
also
was-
while I was sitting there, I had the exact same thought, and I almost made a comment to you, Kate. I was almost like, he looks awful. But also, I think part of that was them trying to chalk up how long that battle was, and Thor was just like hanging out up on the mountain.
Yeah,
Like,
I kind of think that's why they were specifically going for that look. Yeah,
For
They
Peter
all look
to
pretty...
right for
haggard.
Peter to go up there and be like, bro, like, come on, we need you. Yeah, I think it would take a little bit for him to admit that, like, granted, Peter has come a long way as a character from, almost destroying the entire galaxy to where he is now. But, like,
Yeah.
for him to admit, like, he needs another male, especially Thor, after what we see, like, they're kind of butting heads a little bit for alpha male. For him to come up and say, like,
You can have my ship.
right. For him to come up and say, like, hey, we need you to win this fight. Like, that's...
Yeah. Dude, I so could have seen an interaction where they're, like, in the trenches getting blasted, and Drax is like, Quill, you must ask the God Man to aid us in this fight. And he's like, we don't need him. We don't need him, And he's like, no.
When Quill
You are
is
a
behind,
dude.
Everyone
We need a
shouts,
man.
yes, we do. Yeah.
Quill is behind cover and Thor's giving his speech. And then he says the catchphrase at the same time with the little shit-eating grin on his face. From that moment on, I'm just like, this movie's going to kill it, because they captured Peter Quill freaking perfectly.
I'm ready for Guardians 3.
I'm so ready for Guardians
And
3.
They gave us a little taste of it. I'm very excited.
Right?
I'm
The fact
not.
that
I'm
Taika
sorry.
Really?
and James Gunn were in such conversation about the two.
Hold on, Shade Boy.
Yeah.
Shade Boy's got to talk.
Yeah, sorry. I mean,
The Shadow.
I'm not really impressed with anything James Gunn has done since Guardians 2.
That's because Suicide
has
Squad
Suicide
is in
Squad was
that.
garbage.
Oh, okay.
That thing is a
Well, it's
puke-gasm.
You're crossing
DC.
streams.
I didn't mind Suicide Squad. I thought it
No,
was okay.
I'm just saying, like, if it's gonna be anything like that, then I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know
I
why.
get it.
I'm just like so anti James Gunn right now. Like,
Well, he is
so-
kind of a douche.
So
What if we could have had
okay.
Taika Guardians of the Galaxy? What if we could have had that? That would have been quite
sure.
a movie
Yeah,
to
yeah,
watch.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's good. I hope I'm wrong. But
Right.
after just seeing like the stuff that he's made, like, I don't know, I kind of feel like we're getting like the edgy directors who are like giving like the I don't know, like a middle finger to like everyone else, be like, I'm gonna make my own movie.
I get it.
As long as he doesn't
maybe it's-
warp all
maybe-
over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
No more of them.
Don't
And
more
while,
free zone.
while I'm in the shade, I'm going to defend Natalie Portman because I really
Please do.
I liked her character in this movie. In previous movies, it might have been because I was in a relationship when I was watching these movies and like seeing myself in that spot.
And
of, like,
Natalie Portman.
no, my God.
We're going to
that's my
transition
fault.
past that.
That's my
Caught in
fault.
4K.
Worcestershire, Omnipotent City.
Omnipotent.
We're just gonna
Don't
gloss
worry.
past it.
Omnipotent City, Symbiote City, Natalie Portman City. Anyway,
I feel shitty.
I don't know. Like, I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the chemistry between two of them because like Thor and Lady Thor just like being like super awkward, and she's learning how to be Thor, and I don't know it. Again, I'm still in like the glorious like aftermath of seeing it. I need to see it again just to kind of really nail down my thoughts. But like first take, it was just kind of cool. Like they could have gone a different route, and I think we are seeing the consequences of seeing like maybe potentially 3 to 4 different movies that were cut and then just
Right.
pasted together last minute in an editing room, which I think.
While you're
it
on your
would be-
rant, at the end of it, give a rating, and then rank the Thor. Then rank the Thor films too, like what Jordan and Michael did. I kind of like that.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Not to interrupt, but
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, we could have just left like Thor 1 and 2 in the dust and just like we're done with that. Kind of like what happened to Thor's big 3, like his best friends. I think that might be one of my biggest gripes is
oh yeah, the Warriors.
Taika Waititi just is like, oh hey, axe or dagger, dagger, dagger. They're all dead.
That person died. That person
Yeah,
died.
and
Yeah.
so
Still got
yeah,
one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sif. Yeah, we barely
has
talked
one
about
arm.
Lady Sif.
She
Yeah,
even
we
got
have, like,
her
7
Winter Soldier arm thing.
Yeah, maybe
We have
maybe
like
her arms in
7/8
Valhalla.
of one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Lady Thor. Really enjoyed it, and I think it's because I didn't see like Mjolnir action
Meow meow.
in. Yeah, I didn't see that in the trailer, and so I was just like really surprised. I thought I was really disappointed with the lightning bolt. I thought that was more of a MacGuffin than the
Thunderbolt?
kids. Thunderbolt. Sorry.
It did look kind of boring.
Yeah, and it was like I was talking to Tice and after the movie, and I wish the Thunderbolt would have changed color to like Thor blue instead of being yellow the entire time. Even though Valkyrie, and we didn't even talk about Valkyrie all that much. I think she had a really good performance. I think how it was written, it could have been written a bit different. But when
We didn't really see any growth with her character. She was just
Right,
kind of
right.
there.
She was there.
Yep. But when she was on screen, it was like watching like all like the power players on a chessboard, all the power player like pieces on a chessboard. And that was really cool. Like anyway.
Yeah.
So overall, what I wanted from this film was more Ragnarok, and I think I got that. Was it at the level of Ragnarok? I don't think so, but it's dang near close. I think that one of the things that this film does is kind of falls back onto other like looking like other Marvel movies in the series. Just it's kind of like copy paste, but I also, going back to Leroy's point, like I really liked Thor going to all these different planets, like galaxy jumping. It's expanding our universe. It's expanding like where are we gonna go? Like where are the Guardians of the Galaxy gonna go? And overall, I really enjoyed this film. I would see this film over seeing No Way Home. If I had to watch, if someone gave me the choice to be like, what movie are you going to watch? I'm watching Love and Thunder before I watch No Way Home.
Ooh.
So here's my rank.
That's a tough wank.
Yep.
An opinion.
Let's go. I'm ready. Let's
No,
go.
Respect it.
Yep. So I didn't really talk about why I like Natalie Portman. I think.
Well, you don't have to, baby.
Oh, she was cut for this film.
Her arms being the size of my legs.
So yeah, it
that's
it reminded me of Sarah Connor in T2. Where,
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the mood of like having women be in like the hero role is like they don't have to just be scientists. They don't just have to be people who are like standing up for their rights. Like they can be like action heroes. And so
Jack them up and send them out. Let's
yeah,
go.
so like where Ragnarok was like more 80s action, I felt like this is like more 90s, specifically with like the soundtrack for like Guns N' Roses, because that album came out in 91. And so it was just, I don't know, I loved the type of movie that it was. Like it just resonated so much in me from like what I've seen before growing up. My one gripe, I will say, and I would like to consider myself being someone who is very like, I want to be someone who stands up for like equality in movies, but I'm also kind of tired of just, and this is kind of one of Taika's tropes, just with like how many orgy jokes we got in this movie I wasn't okay with. Like I don't know, like
Were there orgy jokes?
oh my gosh,
There's a couple, yeah.
with
I
Zeus.
don't remember.
with Zeus.
Okay. Okay.
And I, so it's again double-edged sword. I appreciate it because the gods are messy, and I loved how I didn't like Zeus at all. I like, even though part of it was like
Oh
how
yeah,
he
he's a bad
talked.
guy.
But yeah, like Zeus is bad, and
Yeah.
like even when like I don't know, like if I'm gonna watch this movie with my kid, I don't like how how open exposed the
switching to dad
conversation of
mode.
like how much sex is talked about in movies without like
Yeah.
being there, and like it's a great
Thor's
conversation.
butt just
His back tattoos were freaking sick.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one, that was
I
another
low-key
part of my
want
favorite
'em.
movies. But
Low-key,
You low-key want 'em?
Thank you. Thank you. I actually have it written on a note, and I can screen share if you want me to.
yeah, and like again with the theme of love and thunder, like sexuality is a part of love, but at the same time, like I'm just like, why is it just like, I don't know, just why does it have to be so mainstream
Right.
all the time? But I also
Agreed.
understand like this is something. Like we obviously have the things that we turn to for like to have those questions, and this could be a gateway to like ask those questions for like other people. But for me, it's just, I'm just a
Right.
little, it's just like a little overexposed.
Do you
right now?
you have a rating?
Sorry,
You're
long
good.
way around. I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me back. Okay, so rating. To be honest, okay, I'm gonna give it. Are we doing out of 10?
Yeah, let's go out of 10.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10,
That's respectable.
and then yeah, Ragnarok, Love and Thunder, and then Thor 1, Thor Dark World. Are we also counting like Infinity War?
No,
and
let's
the-
just
okay,
stick
cool.
with the self-titled ones. Do we
True.
all agree on the order?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. So
My
no
ratings
one
are a
else has
little
to
bit
give the
different,
order.
but
My ratings
Sure.
are different as well, but
Yeah, and since
Yeah.
Cade brought it up, I'd even put Infinity War and Endgame, even though he had smaller parts in those, as better Thor
There's a
developing
lot of
films than
Thor
1 and
story
2.
in those
Yeah.
movies. Yeah, for sure.
100%.
His growth
right.
in those were
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, I definitely like overall. I enjoyed. Like I know some of like we got different views on like the character development in Love and Thunder. I enjoyed this arc of Thor still.
Right.
Like I enjoyed at least having kind of the purpose that fills him in terms of like who am I, and like you're a dad now. Like you are not all
Right.
by yourself. The decisions you make, like you're a king to a kingdom.
Right.
Well, is he still?
So he's not king by
Okay,
any means.
well,
He's just
I
hunting.
think-
He's on the hunt.
I think we are seeing the stepping stones to potentially King
Right.
Thor. So
Agreed.
I
Oh.
think seeing how Odin was raising Loki and Thor, we are going to see that reflected
Very much
in
mirrored.
Thor. Yeah, and so I think building off what you guys said, I think we're going to get that. And I didn't think we were going to get more Thor. So I'm
Right.
pumped. So,
Leroy, rating?
I would say I would give this probably an 8. And the way that falls in with our ratings, how it's Ragnarok, this, Thor 1, Thor 2. I'd say Ragnarok still holds a pretty solid 9. I saw a bit of Ragnarok today. It was on TV. I was just watching it. The first 20 minutes of Ragnarok is some of the best Marvel
Glued.
ever. Like it's so
perfect.
good. So Ragnarok just kind of sits up there, and it probably won't get touched for a very long time. But
Agreed.
this was very good. It felt like more of the themes from Ragnarok, just like more pumped out.
Agreed.
I did very much enjoy the movie. I would agree that the Jane and Thor love story didn't like connect so much for me. I feel like the parts of Jane Thor that I loved was just her being dorky, her not really knowing her catchphrase, being
that was
badass
fun.
all of the time. But then they kind of also shoved in the love story between them that I don't know if they really needed to do that. It progressed Thor's story quite a bit, obviously, but I don't know if her story really needed that.
I'm with you 100% there. I feel like the story we got for Jane Foster in this movie was excellent. It was really good. It's just when you put her and Thor together, I was like,
I don't know if it needed it because her
her
story
being,
was
like-
interesting enough.
Her being like the young Thor when we first got into Thor.
Okay.
like in Thor
Right.
1, that I just want to fight everything. Like when they're with the gods, and she's just like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna give you 15 seconds, and then I'm going in there and I'm busting heads. Like,
And then her constant like
loved
not
it.
knowing her catchphrase, and then when it got awkward, she just like flew off, and she just wanted to check out the city. Like,
Let's give him
that,
the rainbow.
I loved that. That was hilarious. That's a very
Agreed.
interesting Jane that I feel like was missing from the other movies, and I wish I could have
Agreed.
seen more of. And that's
It had a
that's
lot of
why
dimension.
I didn't want her to die in this movie because I wanted more Mighty Thor. I wanted to see a lot more of Mighty Thor on the screen.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yep.
we'll get more of that with
there's-
Valhalla and everything that's
So-
happening. But like,
I want
don't know.
to get into that, but we'll finish ratings first. Jordan,
So yeah,
what do you got?
I'll say 8. I'll say 8.
I left the theater at an 8, and I've come down to probably a 7.5. I don't want to go all the way down to a 7 because I think Taika's humor is just good enough to put it that it pushed me over just that much. And I did love how we ended. It was better than good. It was worse than great, and it was nowhere near perfection. So
Right.
about 7.5.
Boss?
For me, I'd probably put it around probably a 6.5, maybe could be argued to a 7. But in light of the films we've had recently, I liked it more than Eternals. I liked it more than Multiverse of Madness. So it's like, but I'm trying to keep my critiquing in line of the whole of the MCU. And
right.
I liked No Way Home a lot more. I liked Shang-Chi a lot more. That one just came out of nowhere. I
Right.
loved Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi's awesome.
So I'd put it at about a 6.5, but the parts I liked about this film, I thought Ragnarok either did better or even other Marvel films did better. Loved Gore. Loved every second of Gore. Wish he was still around. Kind of salty he's not, but I knew that'd probably be the case.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to do more with him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're curious why I call Mr. Michael Boss, it's because that's what he goes by in our Discord server. The link will be down here in the description.
What?
You should go click it, and we can
What a
talk about nerdy
transition.
stuff 24/7.
And
Believe it or not,
subscribe.
also did that on purpose. But yeah, like, subscribe, click our Discord, join our community. We're just a bunch of nerds. We talk about games, DC, Star Wars, Marvel,
Racing games.
Star Trek.
Stranger
Come
Things.
Strange
join our
New Worlds
community.
is so good.
Yeah.
Join our community. It's a good time. But with that, my rating is so Ragnarok. I don't know what it is about Takai.
That's
He
fun.
has an exact drill to what I like in a movie. I don't know what it is. Like Free
This
Guy.
effing guy.
This guy, like, his humor just nails me right in my chest. So, like, What We Do in the Shadows is a 10 out of 10 show for me.
Hilarious.
Free Guy
to
is
see
a freaking fantastic movie.
He didn't direct that. He did not
Did he
direct
really
that.
not?
I thought he did too, but he did not.
Well, that's
I'm sure he had a
incredible.
hand in it. I'm
yeah.
sure he had a hand in it because he was, in it.
Right. But so Ragnarok is up there. Like, Ragnarok I hold as the crown jewel currently of Marvel. Like, it's going to be super hard to touch that because, like, as far as like solo films, because obviously Endgame is, especially with like fandom. But
It was Sean Levy, by the way.
Sean Levy. Well, props to you, my guy. You make a good movie. Anyway, so that's like I'm gonna say a perfect 9, even though it's not 9's not perfect. But I don't think Marvel will be able to touch a 10. Is the problem? But
Not in Phase 4.
Not in phase 4. It'll be a while. But I think maybe with some Kang content, we can start nudging some like 9/9s, 9/8s.
Some X-Men stuff, some Fantastic
Right.
Four stuff.
So
Come on.
I'm looking
for-
at a list of planned MCU films through the rest of phase. I don't know if this is through
Before
the rest
we
of
go
phase
any
4.
further, for this
Okay,
one, I'll do
yeah.
an 8/8. I'll do an 8/8. It's not Ragnarok.
8/8.
It's not Ragnarok, and it's not. I'm trying to debate on your No Way Home thing, because No Way Home is around that 8/8, 8/9
Oh, it's
thing for me.
It was.
It's a
think
it's a
it was-
9.5
It's
approaching.
it's
10 for me.
Ragnarok, and then it's Shang-Chi, and then maybe this, and then No Way Home. Honestly, for
Yeah,
me, honestly, yeah.
And Spidey's like my number 2 all-time favorite hero. Like, so just to nudge into we're going to be doing future content before we get into. Yeah, I want to do like an intro to each and every single one of the people that you see on the screen, and we're going to talk about favorite heroes and everything, and that's going to be our very next video content coming up because we're in a little bit of a lull. But yes, Jordan, continue with what you were saying about the future films.
Yeah, so I think this kind of moves into where you're wanting to go next, with just kind of predicting what we're doing moving forward.
Yes, sir.
So, I don't know. My big thing is the MCU has always kind of been like, here's your stories, and then Avengers, and here's your stories, and then Avengers again, and here's your stories, and then Avengers.
And then Civil War.
So we've done that.
And then here's
So
your
we've done that
story. And then
3
Avengers.
times, and here we are with the stories. And I'm not seeing the curl in yet.
We're still going that direction.
yeah. I
We're
feel
going
we are.
further in
Which-
this direction. Yeah.
Which is fine. And maybe it's my fault for just expecting them to continue doing it because they've done it 3 times. Why not do it again?
Right.
But just looking at the list going forward. So the next film they have planned, and this is a pretty recent article I'm looking at, June 13th. So this should be accurate on the timeline. We're looking at Black Panther in November 11th. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp we won't see until February 2023.
So I'm gonna put a pin in Black Panther because I wanna go back in order for us to go forward here. So
Then Guardians 3 in May of 23, and then the Marvels
flop.
in July of 23, and then we have a TBA Fantastic Four and 2 more untitled films falling in November of 23 and February of 24. Now,
Dang.
I don't see an Avengers style movie landing in a February.
No.
But I could
no
sure see it landing in November. I don't know.
Holiday season, I could see it.
Mysterio
this
style,
year,
there's
I'm-
a severe lack of Avengers level threats.
Right.
Well, that's
So-
the thing. Like, we know Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to be Kang related. But then it's like, well, what the freak's happening in Guardians 3 and the Marvels? Like,
So
I don't know.
a little
Warlock.
insight into that before we.
Hit me.
That'll be a decent transition here. So, what was the first one other than Black Panther?
That was it. That's the next one.
Right. I want to skip Black Panther because I
Oh,
want to get
Ant-Man.
back to that. Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Yep.
So Ant-Man, that's going to be mainly them going into the quantum realm because we saw Chronopolis, which is where Kang's that's like his hub. That's where he operates everything from.
Is that confirmed?
No,
Like,
but
do
it
we-
is. It
You're
has
probably
to
right.
be. It has to be because they pulled it out of a comic. It looks identical. So it's going to be them exploring the quantum realm because quantum realm also has ties to time now. If they don't connect it, it would just be a massive mistake on their
I
part.
feel like that
So
would be the final straw for me.
right. So it'll be them in the quantum realm doing Chronopolis stuff, tying Kang to everything, and figuring out why he's the ultimate bad. Is probably where it's going to be next. That's not going to bring That's still going this direction, mind you. That's
just feels
not
like
bringing
Ant-Man
anybody together.
3 is just such a weird spot to explore that.
The problem is Ant-Man right now, because if you had no Marvel knowledge, you think the rulers of time. Well, now you think Kang to a certain degree because of Loki, but Ant-Man is the daddy of MCU time travel. Like, if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be a thing.
That's so funny because like Scott Lang's explanation, like it's a time heist,
Right.
So just him being the granddad or the daddy of time is just hilarious to me. 'cause
Of
he
even
probably
having
has
the
no
thought.
idea what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was?
I love it.
What was after that? Sorry, I know you keep closing the list.
No, you're
While
good.
he's
You're
looking
good.
at that, I was going to chime in that I think it'd be cool to see that being like Scott Lang as Ant-Man being kind of focused by Hank Pym, because as we saw with Hawkeye, it's
he's
heavily suspected that Hank Pym is now like the tech
The
supplier guy to
Oh,
fill
yeah,
the
you're
void
right.
of,
Yeah.
of Tony. So
Yeah.
it'd be really cool to see in Quantumania him filling that, like trying to keep
That
all
niche,
these heroes
right.
supplied and in check, funding
Agreed.
and controlling
Agreed.
that quantum. Yeah, that could be a cool thing.
What bothers me going forward is I was under the impression, like, I don't know, maybe Secret Invasion was going to be the next kind of Avengers level thing, and that's it's a show in Disney Plus, so I just don't
It
know.
could be. That's going to be tough because I think I've had the sneaking suspicion that they're going to use Secret Invasion to like. So Hercules, mind you, has a huge role in Secret Invasion. Like he's one of like the main people that help fight. But
Really?
I think they're going to use it to introduce the Young Avengers.
We still have
Yeah,
X-Men. I want the X-Men.
we still have the judgment. We still have the judgment that still needs to be passed from
Right.
the end of Eternals. So I wonder if
Hiroshima.
that's going to be
another line in that.
Our
That's
first.
probably going to get touched in X-Men
our threat.
in 2028 because I mean that punishment has to be Galactus, right? Like I don't know. Okay, what's the next movie? What's the
Wouldn't
next
we
movie?
like to know?
Sorry.
What's the next one?
Guardians 3. Guardians 3.
Guardians 3 is going to be them hopping around the galaxy and we're finally going to get Adam Warlock.
Well, yeah,
So
we
that-
should. That's how
that
they
will-
ended the second one.
That will be very nice. So
Yes.
once again, that's still kind of doing this. It's
Yeah.
that's not bringing
I think
anything.
there's
And
there's just
We're
going to be a
doing
lot
this
of
for
that.
a while.
The problem is we're expecting it to go back this way, and they don't
We're gonna
necessarily
have to.
have
Work with our
to.
yoga boys.
They don't have to, but if
They
they
do,
ever do,
though.
imagine when that happens. It's gonna blow your mind.
We're all hoping for boomerangs.
Temper.
No,
Right.
no expectations.
So-
No.
So, I think that's as far as I want to go, like in the future films. But I want to go back to Black Panther here because what we're seeing
Yeah.
in Phase 4 is a lot of explanations to afterlife. We're seeing gods, we're seeing demons, we're seeing, so on and so forth. And we get a end credit scene where we actually we see with our eyes Valhalla. It exists. We see Idris. We see it exists, and we've seen the Duat, and we've seen
What is Idris?
That's
it's-
Heimdall's character.
Heimdall.
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have just said Heimdall, but
Yep.
but we've seen the Duat, we've seen the ethereal plane, and it's confirmed in Moon Knight that all of those are the exact same thing. They're just with a different filter for everybody. So
It's the different texture packs you
Right.
buy in
Right,
real
exactly.
life when you subscribe to a certain god.
Right.
It gives
So-
reskins to the environment.
and we've
Different
seen
DLC.
from that
Love
that you can come back from it. Mark did it. Which I don't like the idea of people coming back from death because that does the same thing that a multiverse does and allows sloppy writing. But also,
It just cheapens everything.
it
kinda.
does, but also we could get There's so
Don't
much
say it.
stuff.
Don't say it.
There's so
Say it.
much stuff.
But-
if that
Say it.
happened,
Say it.
But for Thor, we could specifically get Jane back. That I wanted to nudge it earlier, but like for the future going forward, I think the reason they're touching all of these, religious nudges and stuff is because we're probably going to, with Secret Wars and Young Avengers, and we're probably going to be seeing a lot of deaths, and most likely they're going to, bring one or two back somehow. And Mephisto's going to be
interesting.
involved.
Oh,
Here's-
There it is.
Here's something I want to touch on, and I want to be wrong, but I don't see myself being wrong, is the further we go down the line here with MCU stuff, we keep getting into like B-list and C-list and D-list characters, where I think eventually people aren't going to care anymore.
We're already there,
Because-
man.
I know exactly. We're already there here in Phase 4, even with some of the same characters.
I'm a diehard Marvel fan, and Kamala Khan, I love Miss Marvel, but also I don't. Like, who cares?
Like,
She doesn't
it's a
do
fun-
anything important.
It's a fun show. I've been watching with my kids, but like, it seems pretty irrelevant otherwise.
Well,
Like,
and, they looped in 10 rings and Kretek, which all that means is going, like, it's nudging it Secret Invasion is all it's going to be.
It's reminding you that yes, this is a Marvel show and
Sorry,
it exists in the Marvel universe.
Everyone
Right.
should know that this is packed full of spoilers, but if you haven't seen Miss Marvel, there's the 10 rings, Kretek, and cool camera angles, and that's
a lot
about
of
it.
color. A lot of color.
Right.
I think it's the most colorful TV show I've ever watched in my entire life.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I don't see any other solution for that other than bringing back characters we all know and love. Like,
So,
you got to do it somehow.
or
We've-
X-Men.
We've mentioned
or
it a
things
couple
like that.
times. They're holding two very big trump cards still currently in the Fantastic Four and X-Men. The amount of hype that they'll get out of nerds by bringing Mr. Von Doom into the MCU will, because he brings in a whole
Do it
nother,
right.
he brings in a whole nother gaggle of storylines. Like, he has the Fantastic Four, Spidey fights him. Like, he is like a granddaddy villain. Everyone wants a piece of Doctor Doom. So like they do have to do him correct, but they have lots of chances to do him right because
If-
everybody has a piece of him.
Yeah,
Who
I
do we
wanted
all
to chime in
still
on
have-
this.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, if we do get Kang being our next like Thanos style villain that's gonna be around for the better part of a decade, how cool would it be if we see something that begins to hinder Kang, we realize isn't our heroes, and we see there's another player on the board, and that's where Doom comes in, as he's like giving Kang a run for his money.
10 out of
And
10.
That's where we start to tie in with
The thing
X-Men
is
and
that's
stuff.
how they have to do it. They have to put him up against someone that is like worthy
Also a
of
big
his
baddie.
time. Right.
Right.
We
Well,
know what the
and-
Fantastic Four can do, but they're still kind of like they're incredible. Don't take what
Right.
my next comment is about to be as like bad, but compared to Doom, throw him away.
Right.
Like he is so
Kang.
freaking bad. Like
Kang ends up being a Doom bot.
Well, here's another thought there too. Kang is so tied into time. What's a perfect way to get all your fan favorite characters back in the game? You just do some timey-wimey stuff.
right.
I'm not saying I love the idea. I'm just saying there's big wigs in a boardroom up in a Disney penthouse somewhere that are all discussing how to keep the cash flowing, and it's not Thor's sidekick character getting a sidekick character. It's more characters that people enjoy and
Right.
want to see back on screen.
Right. And that's part of the reason why No Way Home drops a little bit for me is because they opened this ridiculous can of worms of they cheapen literally everything that happened before it in a way because there's a way that we can have a Tony back. There's a way that we can have a Steve back. Like at some point you have to let the characters die in the movie setting because Steve exists for 60 years in comic runs because they're comic runs. Like they tell an individual story 90% of the time, to where these movies are trying to do this shotgun effect and like get as much of the character out in 2 hours as possible. And in order to keep what they did in, the 15 hours of time that they had on the screen, they have to not have any more screen time. If that makes sense. Like that, I just hope they don't start bringing people back. I wanted to get into that. Like, let the dead die. Leave them dead.
Let us die.
Yeah,
kill it if you have to.
Right. Solid.
More.
You need to get closer to your mic when you say that. But
More.
Kill it if you have to.
But let us see him in the Duat and Valhalla and whatever. But I think in Black
seeing
Panther,
Idris Elba again was freaking magic, even for just a couple seconds.
What if Secret Wars was taking all these afterlives and he's like, now you fight.
that would be dope.
Now you all just respawn back in Valhalla and stuff. Let's figure out who's the best. Everybody fights now.
You think
Boy,
we'll
that'd
ever
be
get to
wild.
the? You think we'll ever get to the point where they try to do what Star Trek did with the reboot movies and having a timeline event, like change
Alternate.
everything and
Right.
retell the same story again? It'll be quite a few years out, but
Potentially, I could see him
I-
doing. Let's face
I
it,
don't
the
know.
mouse wants money, so
I don't want to say there's no more stories left to tell in the MCU, but I feel like they're running out, and they need to get the X-Men off the ground here quick.
right.
I
So
guess is all
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic
or
Four can do it.
something.
I'm
The
just,
problem is
I'm
everyone.
just worried about Fantastic Four because of how miserably it's failed every time it's been tried on screen so far.
I was just about to say it. The reason why people aren't excited for Fantastic Four is because we've seen how many freaking origin stories of Fantastic.
I would
Four.
count Multiverse of Madness one of them.
Blue spaghetti. But I mean, I think we can all agree that both the Fantastic Four and Doom have never been done well, like even remotely close.
I don't
to
think
being-
People
either
say
one
about
of them have done.
communism.
Yeah,
I
It's never going to work. I hope we're wrong.
I don't think any of the characters have been done a justice in any of the films. I fully
Right.
agree with that. So if they're done
I'm
correctly, I get it. But also, people like,
yeah,
oh, I remember Styrofoam Chickless.
yeah. I'm hoping
And-
people can discern the difference between a film that's being handled as an MCU film versus
Right. There's a different
what we've
caliber,
had
but
prior.
That's
Right.
up to how it's shot and directed and acted out and all that.
Time will
It's
tell.
going to be quite a challenge to make a Fantastic Four movie that everybody wants to see. Again
100%.
and again.
all right,
If
gents,
it's
let's
got
start
John
wrapping it up.
Krasinski,
Do you guys?
it'll be okay.
Oh,
Right.
please.
No.
And Emily
Jim,
Blunt. Oh,
Stretchy Jim.
Gumby
Anyone have
Jim.
any closing thoughts? I wanted to get into a little bit of the end meaning, but I kind of nudged what I wanted to talk about with, Love and Thunder. Like the character's name is actually Love, and I'll be interested to see where they end up taking that. But
Very
that was a great
interesting.
little twist ending to the
I
whole
love the
film,
ending. I thought the ending was
that was
fantastic.
pretty neat.
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Closing thoughts?
Nope. I mean, I think it's more of what we've had as of late for MCU films, but with a refreshing sprinkle of Ragnarok and Taika Waititi. So
Right.
that was good. Enjoyed that.
It gripped me back and gave me faith in MCU
It felt
movies
like
again.
it felt like an upswing from
It's definitely
Yes.
an upswing.
movies for sure.
for sure.
I'd say easily my second favorite of the MCU Phase 4 with Spider-Man right in front of it.
Above Moon Knight? Or are we just talking movies?
I'm just talking movies.
Okay.
Just talking movies.
Just making sure. Okay, you guys ready? I'll give us a countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Latest
Latest
Gators.
I hate that.